Up to this point, we have focused on assessing needs, setting goals, and identifying priority populations. Interventions are where those plans become real. This chapter focuses on how we design, select, and implement actions that actually influence health outcomes. As you listen to this lecture, keep one idea in mind. Interventions are never neutral. They reflect the values, assumptions, and power, especially around who defines the problems and who decides what solutions look like. Our first set of objectives grounds us in what an intervention is and how it fits within Public Health 3.0. This matters because modern interventions rarely sit within a single organization or discipline. We focus on logic models and design thinking. Both are tools for managing complexity. Logic models help us explain how change is supposed to occur, while design thinking helps us stay responsive to communities rather than attached to predetermined solutions. The remaining objectives moves us firmly into practice. At the doctoral level, it is not enough to list intervention strategies. You are expected to justify why an intervention should be adopted, or designed from scratch. We'll also frame intervention selection within the ecological and systems level thinking. Let's take a pause on definitions. An intervention is a planned action intended to prevent disease, reduce injury, or promote health in a priority population. Planning is what distinguishes an intervention from a one-time activity. Strategy, on the other hand, is a little bit broader. Think of strategies as the overall blueprint and interventions as the specific actions within that plan. Public Health 3.0 reframes interventions as collaborative cross-sector efforts rather than isolated public health programs. Health departments are no longer expected to act alone. Instead, effective interventions require partnerships with organizations such as transportation agencies, schools, businesses, faith organizations, and community nonprofits, as well as the local government. Communities are not just the recipients of interventions, they are also co-creators. Logic models provide a systematic and visual way to show how an intervention is expected to work. They clarify what resources are invested, what activities occur, and what outcomes are anticipated. Just as importantly, logic models are communication tools. They help align stakeholders and justify funding decisions. Although they appear linear, real-world change is rarely so straightforward. This figure distinguishes between planned work and intended results. Inputs, activities, and outputs represent what we directly control. Short, mid, and long-term outcomes are increasingly shaped by context, systems, and structural conditions. A common critique at the doctoral level is overconfidence in long-term outcomes without sufficient attention to contextual constraints. There is no single best way to intervene. However, effective interventions share some key characteristics. They are theory-driven, grounded in the best available evidence, ethical and culturally appropriate, efficient in their use of resources, and designed with evaluation in mind. They also support community initiatives rather than imposing solutions. Design thinking is about both analytic and creative process. It helps planners deeply understand community needs, experiment with solutions, and refine interventions over time. This approach is especially useful when addressing a complex or poorly defined health problem. Design thinking usually includes 5 stages: empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. And again, these stages are not linear. Teams often move back and forth between them as they learn what does and does not work. Failure is often treated as information, not as a mistake. In this model, the central role is community engagement. Notice that solutions are not developed until the problem is thoroughly understood. Community feedback is embedded throughout the entire process. Adoption often looks efficient because it avoids reinventing the wheel. Before adopting an intervention, planners must ask whether there is sufficient evidence that it works. The evidence should involve similar populations and more than one implementation setting. Fidelity is critical. Even when evidence-based interventions will fail, even evidence-based interventions will fail if the necessary resources, staffing, or infrastructure are not available. This is where systems thinking and professional judgment becomes essential. When contexts differ, this question shifts from does this intervention work to can it be adopted or adapted responsibly? Adaptation asks for whom an intervention works and under what conditions and why. This framework shows that adaptation is systematic, not improvisational. Assessment, preparation, and implementation are supported by feedback loops and ongoing evaluation. Adaptation is treated as a learning process. When no appropriate intervention exists, planners must design a new one. This figure emphasizes alignment between the health problem, level of prevention, level of influence, available resources, and population fit. Breakdowns at any point increase the likelihood of program failure. Many public health problems are considered wicked problems. They involve multiple stakeholders, competing priorities, and unintended consequences. A systems approach recognizes the interconnectedness of people, organizations, and policies. The 6 intervention categories listed here are not mutually exclusive. Strong interventions often combine multiple strategies operating at different levels of influence. Health communication focuses on informing and influencing health decisions. Its strength lies in its reach. However, reach alone does not guarantee behavior change. Communication occurs across multiple levels. Intrapersonal communication may have less reach but have greater influence. Mass and social media offer scale but require careful strategic planning. POST encourages planners to start with people objectives, not technology. Only after clarifying strategy should specific platforms be selected. Health communication assumes a level of literacy that may not exist. Literacy refers to the ability to use written information to function in society and achieve goals. Low health literacy can undermine well-designed and well-intentioned interventions. Health numeracy involves interpreting numbers, probabilities, and risk. This is especially important in communicating screening guidelines, medication risks, and health statistics. Health education is closely related to health communication, but typically involves sustained engagement. Examples include classes, workshops, and structured courses delivered in person or online. Effective education aligns with principles of learning. These include active participation, relevance, repetition, and appropriate pacing. Adults need to know why they're learning something. They are often motivated by problem solving, and effective interventions respect their experiences and actively involve them in the learning process. This table shows how instructional design theory translates into practice. Each learning stage aligns with specific content and teaching methods. Policy strategies include laws, regulations, and formal laws adopted by authorities. They can influence both individual behavior and the built environment. They are often used to promote the common good. Policy making occurs in stages. These include agenda setting, formulation, adoption, implementation, assessment, and modification. Assessment and modification are frequently overlooked but critical. Environmental change strategies focus on shaping context rather than motivating individuals. They make healthy choices easier or more automatic. Environmental changes can occur across economic, social, cultural, psychological, and political environments. Built environments deserve particular attention through health impact assessments. These strategies include services such as screenings, vaccinations, and health risk appraisals. They reduce access barriers but must include follow-up to be effective. Health advocacy involves helping communities take collective action on shared concerns. Participation and empowerment are central. Here, the distinction between advocacy and lobbying is emphasized, along with the growing role of social media in mobilization efforts. Community organizing focuses on strategic change. Community building focuses on capacity and relationships. Effective interventions often draw on both approaches. Strategy selection should be theory-driven. The health impact pyramid helps prioritize strategies based on population impact and required effort. Interventions targeting socioeconomic factors have the greatest population impact. They also require the least amount of individual effort. Education and counseling require substantial individual effort and often produce smaller population effects. Even well-designed interventions have limitations. Technology must be usable and accepted. Policies must be known, fair, and enforced. And education depends on exposure, understanding, and reinforcement. Interventions are planned actions designed to promote health or prevent disease. The strongest interventions use multiple strategies across multiple levels of influence. Intervention strategies fall into 6 major categories. Interventions may be adopted, adapted, or newly created. All interventions have limitations, and making evaluation and iteration is essential.